Hey there everyone, welcome back to another Game Vault video. As always, I'm Cat the Beefy with the Game Vault. Happy New Year to you everyone. I've got like a little new format here trying out for the news videos. Let me know what you think of it down below in the comments. We're going to talk about CDPR today, CD Projekt Red, and their claims that The Witcher 4 is going to tackle a woman's struggle in a medieval world. So let's cue up the music and we'll get right into it here. Alright, so The Witcher 4 directors claim that using Ciri as their main protagonist will allow the team to explore the specific struggle of a female monster hunter in a medieval world. But is medieval sexism something anyone was asking for in a fantasy RPG game heading into 2025? Now, we saw a lot going on in 2024. There was a lot of quote-unquote woke games that came out onto the market. Games like Concord, games like Dragon Age the Veilguard. These games failed miserably. All of them underperformed. A lot of studios got closed. A lot of people lost their jobs. You had other games like Dustborn did the same thing. Just terrible, terrible performances overall, all around, and everything. We saw Intergalactic, that new game from Naughty Dog, being announced, and the trailer is just being ripped apart on YouTube. If you go there and you look at the ratio of likes to dislikes on it, it's terrible right now. Is the same thing happening with The Witcher here? I don't know. Now, exploring a female Witcher in a medieval world is not necessarily a bad thing. So there's a lot going on here. I'm really curious to see how CD Projekt Red handles this. I'm not writing this off yet, and I'm not against Ciri being the main protagonist here. We knew this was coming. You know, the writing was on the wall for this, so, you know, nobody can argue that. So let's see what happens with this. You know, the jury's still out. Definitely not writing it off yet. Real curious to see what happens. But ever since CD Projekt Red announced that Ciri would star in The Witcher 4, there have been questions and concerns raised. Some corners of the web erupted with outrage at yet another female protagonist replacing a beloved male hero. Others are asking thoughtful questions about lore and whether Ciri's abilities and background even fit the concept of being a Witcher at all. I ask these questions. I'm on the thoughtful end of things here, right? I got so much feedback in the comments of the videos I've done on this, and I appreciate each and every one of you that's given me that thoughtful and intelligent feedback on there. So much so that I actually ordered the entire Witcher series, and they just got delivered yesterday at the time of filming here, 2 days ago by the time this airs. And I can't wait to delve into these books and start reading them just to learn more about this world and to delve into it. Now, I understand that the game adaptations and all that are just based on this world. It's not a retelling of it or anything, and it's not, 100% based off of that. I know how adaptations work and all that. It's kind of set in that world, and it's loosely adapting it, and that's fine. I get it. So, but still, there's some nuance here, and there's ways they could do that will do this right. The fear is, and this is only because we've seen so many male characters replaced by female characters in recent years, both in television and movies as well, and in video games it's happening, that people are not nervous about it, but they're skeptical. People are skeptical when they see that, and they're like, here we go again. Hopefully that's not the case this time. Hopefully, we knew, like I said, we knew Ciri was going to be the next Witcher. Hopefully it's handled right, and this is not just some kind of feminist propaganda crap. I know a lot of you guys out there are going to be like, don't get your hopes up. I've heard it in the comments too, and I'm not getting my hopes up, but there's a string of hope. Anyway, what's catching the most attention is how the developers at CD Projekt Red have seemingly confirmed they plan to use Ciri's storyline to explore sexism and gender politics in the medieval-inspired world of The Witcher. Well, there you have it. Speaking to Eurogamer, the game director Sebastian Kalemba and narrative director Philip Weber laid out how, from the start, they saw Ciri as more than a mere side character. Okay, this might not be that good. Anyway, they pointed out that while Geralt was already set in his ways at the outset of The Witcher 4, is at the beginning of her journey as a Witcher. In a way, even though Ciri is, of course, a defined character, with her, players will have the opportunity to still define her quite a bit more. Weber said, specifically define the path that she will take on her way to becoming a Witcher, and basically also what kind of person that will make her. The conversation with Eurogamer then turned specifically to questions that centered around the idea of sexism in the world of The Witcher. The outlet asked, see, and that's where the problem is. We all know times were different in medieval times. Women had a very different role in society back then. High value women like royalty and all that were high value, but your common woman was very low value. Now the role of a female Witcher, and I understand that it's highly contested whether or not she could even become a Witcher. Some people will argue that she can't because she is a woman, and I've had other people tell me that based on the books that they just stopped testing it on women because it was too difficult for them and they would die, but it doesn't mean that they can't. Maybe they just didn't find the right one, and that, so there are, the possibility exists, based on some people's opinions and all that. So I'm kind of curious to see how they handle that. But anyway, so the outlet asked, the experience of a woman is actively quite a significant theme in The Witcher in a lot of different forms. The women of this world are subjected to a lot of violence. They're heavily sexualized in different ways. There's the kind of deal with the devil the sorcerers have to make where they lose their fertility and so on. Watching the trailer, it seems to maybe channel this. There's Ciri, a woman trying and failing to save another woman from more of this universe's violence, right? Is that an intentional theme that you were channeling with the trailer? And also, is it something you're intentionally looking to explore in the game, the experience of a woman in particular through Ciri's eyes in this world? Now, Weber replied, I would say that the world of The Witcher is a really dark one that's really inspired by, of course, dark fantasy folklore, but also medieval to early Renaissance history, and that is a world that was tough for many different groups, women among them. As an example, in The Witcher, we also deal a lot with racism when it comes to non-humans. Can you be racist against a non-human, or is that a speciesism? Anyway, and this is something that we want to keep up with in The Witcher 4. I think it's something that has always been really important. We make games for adults, and it also means that we tackle some difficult topics. We tackle them in interesting ways. We tackle them without giving easy answers, but often opening difficult questions that players have to answer. And I think that some of those questions might be going in this direction as well, because yes, Ciri's a woman, and as a Witcher in this world, this is an unusual state. So I don't think it's going to be this story everywhere, but since this is a part of the world and we want to tackle so many of these different themes, it's definitely also going to appear there as well. So does this mean that instead of simply showing how Ciri grows into her monster slaying role, CD Projekt Red feels it's important to weave in a storyline about gender politics? And do most gamers want that in their dark fantasy? Now again, Ciri dealing with being a Witcher, and and if you watch a trailer, and if you haven't watched a trailer, I highly recommend watching it because it is interesting. It's very interesting, especially when she reveals herself in the shock that people, what? A properly told story with the right amount of nuance could be fantastic. Her dealing with being a female Witcher could be something pretty amazing and pretty interesting and pretty wild to see how they handle it. Like I said, done with the proper amount of nuance. But if it's just out there and girl bossed and pushed through and all that, then it'll just be silly. And if it's all focused on modern day social political issues, then it's going to be tiring. We don't want that in gaming. We want to escape this stuff in gaming. And like it says here, recent AAA launches suggest that modern dayisms and overtly feminist angles might be wearing thin on audiences, and that's true, man. Star Wars Outlaws, Dragon Age, Veilguard, Concord, and Dustborn have all been criticized for focusing too heavily on message-driven storytelling rather than compelling immersive gameplay. Each of these games failed commercially, which is a trend that can't be ignored now. CD Projekt Red's approach may create headlines initially, but numbers could indicate that it often alienates core players seeking to lose themselves in a rich fantasy or sci-fi realm where they could take a break from debating societal issues. So, yeah, let's take a look real quick at, what was it? Dragon Age the Veilguard, where they injected all these modern-day social politics into it with the whole character of Tash being non-binary and the ability for your character to be trans, the top surgery scars, and all this other modern day nonsense in there. I didn't play the game. I'll admit that 100%. I will not play that game, even if it ever comes up free. It just looks like absolute trash from what I've seen. And some people have argued, oh, you did. No, I don't need to eat a sandwich that's made with dog crap to know that it's going to taste like crap, right? You can watch videos online, you can see the gameplay, you can see the dialogue, you can listen to it, and you can understand that it's going to be something that you're not going to like and it's going to be bad. And that's the way it was with the Veilguard. I could tell that. So I haven't seen that with The Witcher 4. I saw an interesting trailer, and if you watch the trailer, you'll see that despite Ciri's efforts, she was unable to save this young lady. And there's definitely a message there, and it's almost one of futility from the feel of it. Like, despite her best efforts, despite the fact that she went in there, she told the girl to go back to the village, to go home, save yourself. And she put her own life at risk for this girl. And she comes back to the village and the girl is dead anyway. It was a bleak, and like I said, it was a message of almost a futility at that point. I don't think it was a bad trailer. I don't think it was a bad representation of the character, and I'm not looking at it. It didn't come across as something bad. It didn't come across as girl bossy or anything like that. So, like I said, I've got high hopes for this. CD Projekt Red as a studio, though, I don't have high hopes for them, but I'm hoping they rise above my low expectations is what I'm saying here. I'm hoping they read the room and they see these other games and how they failed, and they're able to, do something good with this game and pull those modern politics out of it if they wanted to inject there. You can still get your point across without applying it with a hammer is what I'm saying. That's the way it used to be done in video games and movies and stuff like that. They could still do that. Anyway, contrast that with the buzz around Black Myth Wukong Stellar Blade and Space Marine 2, or with Marvel or Space Marine 2 and Marvel Rivals, games that simply promise fun escapism without underlining any modern political talking points. Those titles have benefited from a fan base relieved to get back into the essence of why most people play games in the first place, an engaging world and an entertaining story. The Witcher series has always prided itself on gritty realism and moral ambiguity. The original game famously let you collect risque romance cards. The newer entries, especially The Witcher 3, tackle topics like racism towards non-humans and the harsh realities of medieval society. One could argue that sexism is simply another piece of the puzzle, and that if handled with a deft hand, it might enrich the narrative, and I agree. But it's also easy to suspect that The Witcher 4's big talking point is less about telling a natural extension of Ciri's tale and more about ticking a modern box. Instead of letting the sexist elements of the world stand as background flavor, they risk turning it into the main course for the sake of being relevant. Ideally, The Witcher 4 will follow through on this in a way that feels consistent with a dangerous, monster-rid environment rather than a lecture on how tough it is to be a woman. Ciri is potentially an interesting protagonist as a defined character who can still be shaped by player choices, but it seems like a misstep to turn a dark medieval fantasy epic into yet another female empowerment storyline at a time when many gamers are clamoring for an escape from real-world culture wars. So the real problem, too, is, like I said, we've seen so much of this that's what we're expecting here. So come on, man. Let's do it right, guys. Let's do it right. CD Projekt Red certainly has its work cut out if it executes Ciri's arc with the same nuance and care that it made Witcher 3 a success. All may be forgiven. However, a fear that sexism, feminism, and social commentary will take a role in this narrative is already stirring skepticism from a fan base exhausted by messaging in modern AAA games. But for now, fans can only hope that the final product delivers on the immersive monster hunting escapism they fell in love with without forcing modern political narratives. After all, if The Witcher 4 simply goes the route of gritty feminist commentary, recent gaming history suggests that no amount of brand power will stop the player base from walking away. What do you guys think, man? Do you think CDPR is going to make it about sexism? Or do you think that's just going to be like a subtle theme or a heavy-handed allegory for modern culture wars? Let me know down below in the comments what direction you think CD Projekt Red is going to take with this. Like I said, man, I'm hoping they do it right. I'm hoping they've got the nuance there, and I'm hoping this is a great story, a natural extension from The Witcher 3 and a great introduction to Ciri, because we could see like a wonderful trilogy of games featuring her and developing this character and making her into something special that we can enjoy, for the next 10 years. Thanks for joining me today. As always, leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and Happy New Year once again. I'll see you next time. Until then, peace.